My name is Dr. Robert Lang. Welcome to Wembley Park, and this is a film about the artwork by Dan Mitchell, These Days. This is Kingdom Come by J.G. Ballard. Ballard's novel, Kingdom Come, is about a shopping centre and a football stadium that decay into violence. Dan Mitchell used the concepts from this book to help formulate this large piece of work called These Days. These days, even reality has to look artificial.
Consumerism leads to social pathology. You may say that's hard to believe. It paves the way. Half the goods we buy these days are not much more than adult toys.
Ballard explores many 21st century myths in his 2006 work. In the same way, Dan Mitchell, the artist, in this 2020 piece called These Days, explores current myths of today. Here we are in Wembley Park, Olympic Way, and as you can see, it is an avenue of brands and signage. This repeated use of surface again and again and again helps reinforce an idea of humans' identity in a world that has changed beyond all recognition. Wembley Park is home to Wembley Stadium. Wembley Park, therefore, is really a suburb of football.
Sport is the big giveaway. Wherever sport plays a big part in people's lives, you can be sure they're bored witless and just waiting to break up the furniture.
Your life is available to rent. I think that's what's really going on here. That it's your life that is being rented, not the property, but your actual life. You can't buy a unit in Wembley Park, you can only rent them. Everything is together. You live here, you work here, you play here, you eat here. You don't have to travel more than 400 yards. This is Wembley Park.
Forget being modern. Except the whole modernist enterprise was intensely divisive. Modernism taught us to distrust and dislike ourselves. All that individual conscience, the solitary ache. Modernism was driven by neurosis and alienation. Look at its art and architecture. There's something deeply cold about them. And what of consumerism, you may ask? It celebrates coming together, shared dreams and values, shared hopes and pleasures. Consumerism is optimistic and forward-looking. Naturally, it asks us to accept the will of the majority. Consumerism is a new form of mass politics. It's very theatrical, but we like that. It's driven by emotion, but its promises are attainable, not just windy rhetoric. A new car, a new power tool, a new CD player.
It's important that things seem to look real, or that the realness of things has an artificial look to them. This is a real tree. But the image behind me of a JPEG tree somehow has more consequence, is more part of the total vision. That is the problem with nature. It has to compete with a much stronger force, the force of the artificial. The artificial exists within the realms of the total vision. Nature struggles to keep up. This might look like graffiti, but it isn't. It is more successful than that. This is supporting the total vision. It is just decoration. It is not damaging anything.
And you may ask, what of liberalism, liberty, reason? They failed. People don't want to be appealed to by reason anymore. Liberalism and humanism are a huge brake on society. They trade on guilt and fear. Societies are happier when people spend, not save.
It's a gin and tonic, the size of a bath.
This is today's England. Consumerism rules, but people are bored. They're out on the edge, waiting for something big and strange to come along. They want to be frightened, they want to know fear, and maybe they want to go a little mad.
Cinema is dead. It used to offer a dream, but that dream is no more. It is not strong enough. We need to live in the dream, and that is what is on offer here. Total occupation, total lifestyle.
The suburbs dream of violence, asleep in their drowsy villas, sheltered by benevolent shopping malls. They wait patiently for the nightmare that will wake them into a more passionate world.
Classic theory is that you rent yourself, labour, for tokens or cash. This is called work, but your real job is shopping.
This isn't a shopping mall, it's more like a religious experience. It's like going to church.
The building behind me with the red, white and black fins is a multi-storey car park. For British people, parking is of higher spiritual value than God, which makes this place a cathedral.
Parking is well on the way to becoming the British population's greatest spiritual need.
How do you hide a building? You hide it by wrapping it in a JPEG that shows you other buildings. The reality and the fake are the same thing.
People feel they can rely on the irrational. It offers the only guarantee of freedom from all the cant and bullshit and sales commercials fed to us by politicians, bishops and academics. People are deliberately reprimitivizing themselves. They yearn for magic and unreason, which served them well in the past and might help them again. They're keen to enter a new dark age. The lights are on, but they're retreating into the inner darkness, into superstition and unreason. The future is going to be a struggle between vast systems of competing psychopathies, all of them willed and deliberate, part of a desperate attempt to escape from a rational world and the boredom of consumerism.
What we can see here is a direct contrast between the underside of the stadium and its concrete superstructure that is also present in the residential structure but is hidden by fake
bricks. The residents, the spectators, change places in many respects. It is kind of like Rear Window as a sport.
We're not reasonable and rational creatures. Far from it. We resort to reason when it suits us. For most people, life is comfortable today, and we have the spare time to be unreasonable if we choose to be. We are like bored children. We've been on holiday too long, and we've been given too many presents. Anyone who has children knows that the greatest danger is boredom. Boredom and a secret pleasure in one's own malice, together they can spur a remarkable ingenuity.
Our heritage, our future, our JPEG.
The churches are empty, and the monarchy shipwrecked itself on its own vanity. Politics is a racket, and democracy is just another utility, like gas and electricity. Almost no one has any civic feeling. Consumerism is the one thing that gives us our sense of values. Consumerism is honest and teaches us that everything good has a barcode. The great dream of the Enlightenment that reason and rational self-interest would one day triumph led directly to today's consumerism. What's the point of free speech if you have nothing to say? Let's face it, most people haven't anything to say and they know it. What's the point of privacy if it's just a personalised prison? Consumerism is a collective enterprise. People want to share and celebrate. They want to come together. When we go shopping, we take part in a collective ritual of affirmation.
Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue. Hear ye, hear ye. Nothing is true. Nothing is untrue.
just got a message saying people can't hear us, so just wait a second.
Oh my God. Have to do that all again.
Yeah. Let me just find out.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. This is in mime. See, we're going to do some groovy moves. Where are we now? Are we up? Are we there?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well,
Not yet.
not yet. Audio problems. Audio problems.
Chloe's just texted me. They can all hear us now. So let's start again.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not.
Friends. Welcome, everybody. Hi. So basically, let's recap. Lois was asking me sort of general opener of a question, and I wanted to say, first of all, a massive shout out to the filmmaker Hydar, who it wouldn't have happened without him. He did a great job, and I was just saying to her, I think the film is great, but so I'm trying not to swear either. I really hate watching myself. It may surprise some of you out there who think I'm a narcissist, but I'm not at all. It makes me. But anyway, it's a great film. And so the context, obviously, is in a sense COVID, because what I wanted to do was like do this big public artwork, have loads of friends come along, loads of art lovers and all the rest of it, and have this great big, because it's like a massive piece of art and there's a new pub and everything, and just like try and get as many people down there, and everyone gets really drunk and it'd be lols and Wembley Park and just how weird it is there. But obviously that couldn't happen because of COVID, so we had to make a film. But the actual specific piece, the artwork these days, I think it's worth. I'm going to read something to you. It's worth saying that the original text was going to come from this quote. This is today's England. Consumerism rules, but people are bored. They're out on the edge, waiting for something big and strange to come along. They want to be frightened. They want to know fear, and they want to go a little mad. Now, although this was originally given the green light by the higher-ups in Wembley Park and Brent Council, it was felt that as the pandemic hit, that somehow wouldn't be acceptable, which I kind of agree with, because something big and scary did come along and completely freak out everybody, basically. Although part of me obviously would have much preferred that, because it's hilarious to do that. But anyway, so the sort of context of the work was really about when I first went to Wembley Park. Well, I worked there in the 90s, but we'll talk about that later. When I first went there for a look around after having spoken to you about the commission as a possibility, and like you come out of Wembley Park Tube and you start walking around, and actually what's behind you is what you see when you walk out the tube station. Olympic Way, it's called. And the first thought is like, where am I? This brand new world has just risen out of the ground. And it's like other sort of environments around, like for example 9 Elms, which I think you're quite familiar with, Lois. It just was something, and then it's been completely turned into something else. King's Cross is the same, and sort of walking around there is a sort of I don't want to be rude about it, but it is a sort of like what's going on kind of feeling, and I sort of got over that very, very quickly within seconds, because I suddenly realised actually what I'm being presented here as an opportunity, a sort of playground for this sort of dystopian, sort of Ballardian idea, and obviously what you've got there is what used to be there was kind of a bit of a nightmare in some ways. It was like still bombed out ruins from the Second World War, sort of not collapsing industry, but it was a sort of like quite a forgotten part of London. So it was kind of remade. It was a big public-private partnership, and I think one could argue in some ways, I mean, at least it's successful. It works. People go there. People live there. You get 100,000 people turning up to watch football or music events or whatever on a regular basis. Okay, not at the moment because you got COVID, but there was something about the environment that really sort of caught me, and the amount of vinyl spread all over the place, the amount of signage was really like nearly at a maximum. And I've got an interest in that kind of graphics, and it just seemed somehow there would be quite a good marriage of, on one hand, mirroring the vinyl environment, the visual image environment I was walking around in, and then using that with a sort of Ballardian, or not Ballardian actually, but a quote from J.T. Ballard, who's somebody I'm quite influenced. There he is, quite influenced by.
So could you So Dan, could you talk a bit more about Ballard on the quote that you put on the front of the Civic Centre? So you talked a little bit about the quote that you wanted to put on. We've changed that because you changed that because of COVID, and which novel the book came from, and the kind of thinking around that as well.
It came from Kingdom Come, which is Ballard's last. It's not his last book; it's his last novel. And okay, I might be reaching a little bit here, but because the book is set in Metroland, or sort of this shopping centre in this sort of semi-imaginary place and the outskirts of London. Sort of it's an exurb of London, really, next to Heathrow Airport, and where actually quite a lot of Ballard's fiction was set. But there was something very much that sort of that chimed with what I was looking at in Wembley Park. I was hoping there was going to be some sort of association between Ballard and Wembley, but there really isn't. But the library being, having Ballard's books in it was enough for me. And reading through the book again and again, trying to get a quote that was going to really work. I think the idea of the artificiality and realism, the way that they sort of network together or mesh together, was just complete. It was totally transparent to me. When you look around, the images that you're seeing behind me of the sort of brick building, none of those are bricks. It's kind of 3D printing, plus everything being skinned with this sort of surface of branding or whatever. It just seemed perfect, absolutely perfect. And there's a funny story about how that actually manages to trap both of us. Which in fact, if you look at this here, what you're seeing, this is outside Box Park. This is a billboard, and that's Lois and I caught in a photograph that's now on a billboard JPEG in Wembley Park, which was kind of considering I was criticising, oh, look at the JPEGs, oh, look, I'm so clever, oh, look, all the JPEGs around me, and then suddenly I'm now stuck with you in a JPEG in Wembley Park. It was sort of like the revenge of the JPEG, which I thought was kind of like perfect. At first I was quite shocked, but I thought it was absolutely hilarious.
I just to intercept again. So I don't know how many people could actually hear us at the beginning, but if anybody has any questions, just put them in the chat, and then I'll put them to Dan. We've got about 45 minutes, so just keep them coming. I've already got a couple as well. I guess one of the things, Dan, I just wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about was, I guess, Wembley Park and the kind of history of Metroland, and a site that has kind of been a place that kind of like successive generations have tried to place make, whether that was the kind of original like Metroland, and now kind of Quintain and the work that they're doing around Wembley Park, and I guess your relationship to Brent and the council when you used to work there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very easy to look historically at the place and see it as, oh, look at these successive failures. But I don't think that is true at all. Actually, I think it's quite remarkable. I mean, it originally was built as a pleasure park, a bit like in what's left of Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens today, in a sense. But it went through successive ideas, and there were some really serious ambitions. Like, I forget the guy's name, but he wanted to build an 8-legged kind of metal tower to not just rival the Eiffel Tower in Paris, but it was going to be like twice the height. And they managed to build the base of it, and then over a period of time, things changed. And and when you look at London today, it's like it's going through another revolution at the moment. The changes, they're digging up roads, new buildings going everywhere, new environments coming out the ground, etc., etc. So it's something that Wembley Park is absolutely part of that. And very much when they built the tube station. The Metropolitan line, the tube line from London out to Amersham, they were very successful in changing the law, because at the time railway companies couldn't profit from the land that they bought either side of the actual railway track, so they couldn't actually sort of develop it. And the developers of what was actually called Metroland managed to do that. And they've. If you have if you walk around now, if you outside of Wembley Park, you look at the sort of environs alongside the actual railway. It's amazing, incredible housing. I mean, built in the 1920s and 1930s. It's really, it might not be everybody's taste, but actually, when you look at it, it's a very, very good example of sort of pre-World War II architecture. Stunning, actually. But I like that sort of thing. So, but yeah, so there was kind of some sort of history there, at least, to experiment with and look at.
And I guess now kind of the work that, and I guess the development, the place of Wembley Park, it's kind of almost taken this kind of idea of building a place, building culture, kind of giving people culture. I think you said, I think Robert Lang said in the film that they kind of buy into the idea. They don't buy it, they rent there. They're part of that culture.
Well, I think there's I mean, there will be the official culture, which, you know, is always going to be dominated by sport because you've got Wembley Stadium there. So, you know, the joke of the suburb of football. But you've also got, you know, there's the cinema and there's the arena where there's a lot of music goes on. But that's people coming in, you know, spending whatever they spend, a couple £100 or whatever to go and see England play or lose or whatever, and, you know, stay in the hotels, or you go out and you have some food and but you shouldn't go away. But what I was sort of another thing that I was interested in was actually exploring what kind of culture or subcultures would start to be sort of progenerated by the people living in or renting the units in Wembley Park, and the people who are living around there who were then visiting. And, you know, there was quite a few kids hanging out, and there was quite a lot of people on electric scooters buzzing around because it's quite a sort of smooth environment to traverse. But you know, I think it's very, very early days to sort of see. And, you know, I mean, especially when you examine the literature of Ballard, he's very interested in these sort of like quite extreme subcultures that pop up. And, you know, there's always a bit of violence there, or some sort of sexual thuggery or whatever. And I obviously didn't witness any of that there yet. Although I did stay in the Hilton Hotel, which was great, and was thinking about that kind of thing. But yeah, that was something I don't think the work really explores that. That was something that was always in the back of my mind about a sort of possible, you know, thing to do there. But, you know, I think obviously everything sort of gets stuck by COVID. But I did fantasize about renting a unit there, actually. And I did, as I said, I did spend a night in the Hilton. So, you know, I was a resident of Wembley Park for 36 hours.
And I've got a question which has come from the film, which was how much. So I guess it is probably a question more broadly about the script for the film, and how much of it has come directly from Ballard quotes, and how was that script?
Oh yeah, so all the narration that happens sort of over the footage. These are direct quotes from Kingdom Come.
Oh, so that everything in it is from. I guess the question is, how much of it is it from Ballard? Is all of the script or everything you're saying in the film?
So when you see Dr. Robert Lang walking around saying, "Oh, you know, no, look at the JPEG here," that's the artist inhabiting this character, who's also a Ballard character. That's my writing. The actual narration, the voiceover that you hear, so when you see the sort of scenes at Wembley Park or the Doctor sort of walking around and the voice is sort of off camera, as it were, those are the direct, and it's kind of like got a deeper voice, a little bit like this, and it's, you know, why don't I read you one, viewers, so you get the actual drift. I'll even put on the voice if you like. The human race has sleepwalked into oblivion, thinking only of the corporate logos on its shroud. So that voice that was basically narrating over the film, they are all Ballard quotes from the book.
It's probably a good point to like kind of throw the next comment. I think it's probably more of a comment that has come in, which is, what is the point of free speech if you haven't got anything to say? Then ... truth or not truth.
Is that did someone actually put that in the chat?
Yeah, comment from Class War Room.
Oh God! So can you read that? I know who that is. Hi there, Richard Battersby. Okay, so can you read that again, please? I mean, I'm an expert in any of this. I mean, you know, you're asking me. What do I know? But go on.
What's the point of free speech if you haven't anything to say? ... truth or not truth?
Well, what is the point of free speech? Yeah, but how do you know when you've got something to say? I think when look, sometimes you're going to design something to say and it might have some meaning. Other times you just talk crap and it actually turns out to be quite sort of prophetic and, you know, a little bit, you know, from the mouths of babes, etc. So, you know, I mean, yeah, free speech is important. I don't know if that answers the question. You know, I think it's one of the things that we totally abuse and take it completely for granted. You know, there are plenty of places in the world that you can go to where even making a silly film like this, like this sort of jokey art kind of like thing would be completely unacceptable. So yeah, you know, I value it. I like being able to say what's on my mind, and you know, obviously this links to other things like cancel culture and, you know, the kind of emerging new ideas, or well, maybe not new ideas, but, you know, ideas that should have been way more popular or accepted are being given the realm to explore and come to the fore, which is obviously a good thing, even if that means pissing people off, which is, you know, so what, you piss people off, that's okay. But, you know, free speech, you know, whatever.
So we've got a question about the character in the film, Dr. Robert Lang, and the question was, did you ever meet Ballard, and was he interested in your alter ego and the performance or the project?
Yeah.
And I presume that's about, about Robert Lang.
Yes, I know. I met Ballard a few times, and it was he wrote to me and gave me permission to inhabit or to live this character and do that as I wished online and in performance. So I wouldn't feel comfortable having done this, and I've done it a few times, despite the fact I find it extremely painful to do it. I don't know why that is, but yeah, he gave me permission to do it. Yeah, if anyone wants to get arsey about it, see you later. But yeah. But it was important to have his buy-in and his say-so. I mean, I didn't know him. We weren't like, mates. I think it's one of those things you don't. It's probably not wise to meet one's heroes. And as far as people go, I don't know if hero is the right word, but he's definitely been very influential in my thinking and my experience of living in the 20th and 21st centuries.
And I've got another question, which is, are there developments in London or other urban areas in the UK or internationally where you would be interested in exploring through your work? So I guess it's probably probably asking a question around the context of Wembley Park and this kind of the way that you've explored it.
That's a good question, because actually the first time I did the Dr. Robert Lang thing was in kind of the ultimate one of these, which is the Hilton Hotel at Terminal 4 in Heathrow. Which, if you haven't been, it's just worth going to have a look at it. It's absolutely incredible. It's a stunning piece of architecture, and I think one of the things, and I think this is true. I'm not saying this is my idea; it's just an observation. But the kind of architecture you see taking over the world, which is called curtain walling, is very much exported out of the design, and the feel of it is very much exported directly out of the airports. So airports started to become something, became this thing. They became shopping centres. They're lounges where people hang around waiting to go up into the sky. There's no time there. It's coffee shopping, whatever. But the whole sort of environment, the kind of way it's designed, the flow of people. That these set new architectural standards that sort of like the designers of office space, it's very cheap. It's very, very cheap way of building. It's the cheapest way of building. It's why everyone does it. But it kind of looks impressive. It's shiny and it invites people in. If you want them, if you don't want them, it's extremely, they're very hermetically sealed. And so this kind of like sort of architectural virus, or whatever you want to call it, that sort of spewed out of the airports, then started to go into the offices, and then people started, for some reason, were working in these shiny offices like Canary Wharf or whatever, and somehow the idea was like, we're going to make your home look like your office. It was like, brilliant, I love it, great. And it was all about, I want floor-to-ceiling windows, and I want to live up high, and in some ways that's great. In other ways, isn't it a little bit like living in a prison? I don't know. Having explored that, and I would, there's definitely some. I think the Google complex in King's Cross, when that's finished, will be interesting in a sense. Kind of very scary though. I went walking through Nine Elms recently with a friend of mine, and we managed to sneak into. I don't know how we did it, actually. We sneaked around the actual building of Battersea Power Station, and it's weird because on one level it's super impressive, and there's a whole lot of history there. A lot of it ain't particularly great, but I don't know. It's an interesting territory, that's for sure. But yeah, to answer the question, I did explore the airport, and I think, maybe something that's kind of outside of London would be good as well, just because I think there's a sort of like, this is going to sound really bad, but in some ways there's a sort of more depressing totality to it. If there's nothing around it, it's just like this thing that lands and goes boom, and there's lots of these planned, but some of it is like it's crazy. If you look at the Mona Khartoum, the new Shanghai airport at the Mona Khartoum design, it's amazing. I mean, really incredible. Especially if you compare it to the new the airport that just opened outside Berlin. It's like, wow, what a difference.
So I don't know if everybody heard my introduction at the beginning, but I talked about this work as being part of the BRENT BIENNIAL, which was kind of a part of a series of commissions right across the borough. Dan's was one of 10 commissions that happened specifically in the BRENT libraries. And Dan, I've got a question specifically about the libraries, which was, what did the library staff think of your work on the front of the building, and what has the response been? I think the next bit is interesting. It's like, do people get it?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what they get. I'd hate to sort of force anyone to get anything. But from the interaction I had, they were kind of quite impressed by it, because it is really big. I mean, it's 43 meters by 8 meters. It's ridiculously huge. And I think it was actually you who mentioned that one of the sort of key members of staff there was like, "Oh my God, it's great," and they didn't want it to be taken down. And it's sort of kind of, I mean, but you know, I'm reaching it partly, I'm afraid, because of COVID. You know, the access to the library at the moment, I don't believe you can get in there. We did manage to gain access when the lockdown finished, but there were very, very few people using the library, and it's, you know, it's part of what we are. You know, it's why this film exists. It's part of why we're doing what we're doing at the moment. So it's hard to gauge the public reaction. But I did stop people when it was first erected. I did stop people who were walking by and say, you know, partly out of vanity, but what do you think of that? I made it, and which is kind of a bit of a twatty thing to do. But there you go. I can actually be a twat. There you go. Anyway, but I think they liked it, and it was, you know, it I think in terms of getting it, I think it works on several levels. You know, there's a sort of quite immediate level of, it is a mirror to what's going on around. You know, when you look at the other sort of images that are, you know, Shutterstock. So a lot of the images I used are the same photographer, or some of the same photographers that were used around Wembley Park. So if you sort of go and search people drinking coffee on Shutterstock or whatever, you can quite quickly find this image behind me now, right? Or this one, and then you can look up that photographer, and then you can go and search through their portfolio online and just buy whatever you want. So that's what I did. But the actual work has got more in it than that, obviously.
And I mean, it might be worth adding that Wembley Park really liked the artwork, and they made it part of their own art trail around Wembley Park.
Yeah.
So
well,
yeah.
I mean, obviously. I mean, look, offending people is amazingly easy, and I really didn't want to do that. And I've always felt very grateful for the opportunity and the support that the project got from Wembley Park and Contain and all the rest of it. You know, it's you know, certainly it's got some. It's critical. But it, you know, maybe a criticism of it is that it's a bit critical light, isn't it, Dan? Really. But I personally speaking would rather have done this than not, and I really like the work. You know, when I sort of succumb to my own doubts and feel of like, oh my God, I look at this and I think, yeah, actually I did a good thing. So, you know, and I'd love it to stay longer, obviously, but yes.
And another question, which I think flows on from that a bit, but did you feel restricted in making this kind of public piece of art in terms of the imagery that you could use? And
yeah. I mean, so people who know my work would obviously want to make gratuitous comments about whatever, but yeah. But I saw that as a challenge. It was I liked there's an artist called Gilly Tao who has done this quite a lot by looking at stock imagery and using it to make something that is actually quite arresting. And I think there's a real challenge. There's a discipline. You know, you have to look at a lot of images to find something that works. You know, so I was going through tens of thousands of images to find something that actually spoke in the right way, that had the right tone and the right flavour and the right colour and the right sense and the right people and the right expression. You know. In order to be a vehicle to carry the sort of intention of the work, you know. So yeah, you know, if you get to do whatever you want, then it's very easy to do absolutely nothing.
And I guess, you know, we did have one quote that you wanted to use originally. I don't know, you've read that out, haven't you already? And then which had kind of been approved, and the council were kind of supportive of it. And then COVID hit, and then they kind of got a bit nervous that, you know, people are actually really scared now.
But I think at the time it's worth pointing out that you know, as things sort of descended and decayed through sort of like, oh, it'll be okay in February, and then March is like, oh, lockdown maybe, and then April and through to where we are today. You know, it was, I think one of the reasons why the first lockdown, for example, was so well observed is people were really fucking scared. You know, it was, you know, stay in your homes. People stayed in their homes. I mean, they're not doing that now, but, you know, despite the fact that cases are so much worse. But I think that was true a lot. No one really kind of knew what they were dealing with. And so I have full sympathy with the people who made that decision, and I can't really criticise it. And actually, ultimately, I think it forced out a better piece of work in the end. I think the quote that I ended up with about, you know, realism and artificiality was something that kind of actually connected in a more meaningful way, and possibly a greater way, with the environment that I was working in. So yeah, that's an ex-student of mine, Daffy Crisp, took this photograph. I think it's beautiful. Worth a nighttime visit if you like to stroll around at night.
So is this the first is this the first film that you've made with Robert Lang? And going into the next question, will you be doing more? And is he going to get his own TV show?
I think that might be a question from a curator. That sounds like a very... if you have asked that question on your own, I can send you a text from another curator that I've just received that has the same question. So there must be a curator thing going on there. Whether you are, you know, in North London or New York City, it must be said. Possibly, yeah. Although I can't tell you how fucking painful I find it doing that guy. I almost hate him. I hate dressing up like that. I'm very happy being me. Like, this is great. I can talk about whatever. It's fine. But being him, I don't know why I do it, because it's really difficult. I find it really, really painful. I get very, very nervous, very scared when I sort of, because most of it is public performance, and I sort of do these drawings or show slides or porn or whatever, you know, lols. And I did it in New York. I've done it for Josephine Pride's. She had this tremendous show at Chisenhale, and I've got the opportunity to do a special session there. Yeah, I've done it in the Elephant Castle Shopping Centre with Marilyn Thompson's Peak, in part of the Death Lolls thing. And so, yeah, I've done it a few times. And first, when I was doing it, I was like, no recording, no video. I couldn't bear the idea whatsoever. And but actually, then I started to record in the audio and take a few photographs. And then when the opportunity came up to make this film with Hydar, I had to say yes. So would we do? Yeah, maybe. But tell you what, it's the wig. I've got to get the wig right. I need to get a makeup artist and a hair artist and get the moustache and the wig to be as convincing as possible. And probably lose a few pounds as well. So I sort of look a little bit buff as I walk around as this, you know, silver fox of a doctor who is basically clinically insane. I think that's part of the, you know, that the comments that he passes, the ideas, which obviously I come up with the ideas, but I don't necessarily believe any of it is true whatsoever. I mean, I think that's part of the gestalt of it, is like these myths or lies that the doctor says. When you take them all together, that's when you have some truth. I mean, you know, some of the quotes that are taken from Ballard, the Ballard book, Kingdom Come, are spoken by people who are really very unpleasant. You know, but it is, again, it's about the gestalt of the whole thing. And I think the artwork as well, actually, in many respects, speaks for itself, because it's, you know, there's a Uccello right in the middle of it, which, you know, is a very potent painting, anchored obviously, you know, 500 years ago or whatever. And, you know, so it's not all as it seems. There are some hidden depths, you know, like in everything, you know.
And I guess it might be good to just talk a little bit more about how you collaborated with Hydar. And was it very much that you were kind of doing this performance and he was filming? Like, how did the edit happen, if you find it kind of difficult to...
Very good question, thank you. We met and we spoke, and there was I had some ideas, and, you know, we sort of did some exploration, we walked around there, I took some photographs, you know, we sort of like delved into it. And basically he, as a filmmaker, came up with, you know, what he was happy with, which essentially was, look, this is either my film or it's this, right? And this thing could be loads of other possibilities, but and I said, well, it's got to be your film. You know, he's the filmmaker, he's the professional, he's the expert. And I really, really enjoyed working like that. I'd never done it before, and it was absolutely fantastic. So the edit was all him. You know, like 90% of the camera work, there's some B-roll done by this great friend of mine called Tenor. Hi, Tim. And it was very much a sort of I think there was quite a lot of collaboration, but him being the professional, I sort of trusted his abilities. So in terms of recording the audio and then going out shooting footage and his editing, you know, I certainly have some of those skills, but nowhere near at his level. And you know, I think it's demonstrating the quality of the film. You know, the shots are brilliant. The tracking and the editing and the audio is, you know, it's first class, and it was a real privilege, a very sort of a great experience to be able to do that. So I'm extremely grateful. You know, when this lockdown is over, Hydar, if you're watching, let's go and have lunch. It's going to definitely be on me.
So we did say that we were going to kind of keep this conversation to be about these days and and this piece of work specifically, but we do have a question which is about some of your kind of larger ongoing projects. So the question is, can you talk a little bit more about Asp Art Fair and Fig One and how that intersects with your own art practice?
Fig One, that wasn't my plan. I worked there. That was Mark Francis's idea, 100%. It was sort of important for me to do that. You know, it was a great learning experience, but that's certainly not my project at all. Asp Fair, again, it's not mine. It's something I share with all the artists who take place, but especially Sarah McKillop, who is, she and I were the co-founders. And we do it, it's a 50-50 deal. You know, that appeared online last year. That was difficult. I'm not 100% sure I'd do that again. I think getting people to attend something online in large numbers is proving, you know, unless you're really famous or you're some sort of fucking Instagram influencer or whatever, and you're going to sell buttocks or butox or whatever it's called and whatever from Dubai or I don't know. Botox. I wouldn't know. This is all generally mean, by the way.
So maybe hard mag? Maybe that.
I'm talking about hard mag.
About that.
That's the first rule.
Talk about hard mag.
Don't talk about hard mag.
Okay.
Hard mag is you should buy it as much as possible from my website, which is destroyhardmag.com. Yeah, no, hard mag is a kind of like stupid thing, really. It's a way of letting off some steam. Some of the ideas are really important in it. Some of them are just kind of fairly moronic. You know, taking photographs of dog shit and making jokes, making Hitler tell jokes about dog shit, or you know, lifestyle kamikaze, you know, women masturbating on bicycles and killing people. He's like, or whatever. You know, I mean, I could show you some, but I think the audience would be totally disgusted. But I like it. I know it's fun. It's a way of because otherwise, if you're an artist and you try and get stuck in the mode of like making luxury goods for rich people, it can be fucking depressing. And actually, you know, hard mag costs £10, or you know, other things that I do. You know, I actually made some jewelry, which has become extremely popular. I think some, you know, quite surprised actually. I've had to reissue that for a third time. So yeah. But
okay,
yeah,
I've got a correction. So the question from Class War Classroom is actually from Natasha Rees.
Oh, sorry.
That's just so you know. I wanted to ask you kind of, as we're kind of drawing to the end of the talk, like about your kind of relationship with BRENT and working there, and coming back to it now and making this work for the BIENNIAL and the Borough of Culture, which is really, you know, more broadly, the project's been about exploring BRENT as a borough and a place, and you know what it is like now. And I think when you worked there, it was probably a very different place.
Oh, wow, yeah, that was like '92.
I like your stories.
I was working with the Metropolitan Police and Fraud Office as an investigator. I mean, essentially, I represented the landlord, which was the London Borough of Brent, and there was a huge problem of housing fraud going on. So basically what people were doing, people who worked inside the council, were selling keys to council properties for 250 quid. So you could basically go and buy a council flat. All you had to do was pay the rent, and they'd never know that you'd done it because you got a rent book. and as long as the rent was paid, why would anyone ask any questions? But it has to be put into the context of what evil was being perpetrated at the time by the Tory government, and had been for considerable. This was like '92, so you'd had the whole of the '80s, and it wasn't just Brent. It was all of the left-wing boroughs of London. So Haringey, Hackney, Southwark, Lambeth were absolutely smashed to pieces by the Tory government, and money was ring-fenced, and they just made it almost impossible for people to live. And they were so drastically underfunded. It was absolutely criminal what they did with housing benefit as well. So you had people, residents, trying to do the best that they could, building up massive debt, none of their own problem, none of their own fault. They then getting issued with notices to quit. Plus the early 90s in London, mass unemployment, a sort of total degradation. You then, of course, you've got other sort of things, drugs, the crack and heroin epidemic had sort of exploded again. Well, not again, it was like the first wave of it, really. And, somewhere like Brent, when you sort of look at Stonebridge Park or Chalk Farm or the other large housing estates around, very, very close to Wembley Park, actually. It was, I was working the night shift from 7 to 11. It was really depressing, watching people's lives were just totally eviscerated. At the time, I was living down in a squat in Stockwell, and it was difficult. It was tough, I know life is hard now, but I think if you watch Patrick, is it Patrick Keeler? I think it's Patrick Keeler's London. You get an idea of what London sort of the feel of it. And you put into that sort of like, there was teenage prostitutes walking about. People died there on a regular basis. I saw dead bodies, and it was, I think to use the parlance of today, it was gnarly, man. It was really, it taught me a lot. It's a sort of like, let's leave art school, become a, fraud investigator. It was a bit sort of weird, but so there used to be a building at Kellogg. It was called Kellogg House. That was, I think, what the Brent Civic Centre replaced. But I worked there, and so I got to see, the seedy side to a certain extent of things.
So I've got another question, which is, I think, there's lots of fans for Dr. Robert Lang. Does he have a sister? Is there any more characters? Is it this kind of singular character? Does he have a sister? Any more else?
He's a very singular character. I have a sister. He could, I don't know, I'm not, I haven't thought about it. He could have a sister, He could have a girlfriend, have a wife. He could have a lover, Could move to Stockwell. Who knows what would happen? Be amazing.
All right. Well, I think. Is there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of the work? I think we've covered everything I wanted you to talk about, really.
JPEGery. Yeah, I think we have pretty much mentioned everything. So I'm just looking at this small little list. I don't know. I mean, I'm quite happy. I hope the audience. I don't know how many people are still watching this. Maybe one or two ardent fans. Thank you very much, Lois. Without you, none of this would have happened. That's for sure. And we're good friends, and I'm super appreciative of being given the opportunity. And I'm not being arrogant when I say I think I worked hard, and I know that I did a good job. So I'm very, very happy. And I'm very pleased that this was able to happen. How long? Let's actually, before we sign off, how long? When does it get taken down?
Yeah, that's how I was going to end it. So I think it should be up until around March. The biannual, the Brent biannual finishes at the end of this month, but we're trying to keep it up for as long as possible to see.
Hire a zip car and drive up there and have a sort of romantic spin around if that's what they want you to do. So I'd encourage you to go and see it. I mean, it's great to see it in film. I'm sure it's on one of the Brent 2020 websites, but there's nothing like the real thing. Even if it's artificial, there's nothing like the real thing. That could be a great place to end, don't you think?
Yeah, it is. It is. All right, let's end there. Thank you very much, Dan, and thank you everyone for coming along. And stay in touch.
Thanks. Great. Wonderful.
Thanks.
JPEG forever.
JPEG forever.
Bye-bye.